Have you ever closed your eyes in a completely quiet room and simply listened to the silence? Not the silence of the room around you, but the silence inside your own mind. If you pay close attention to that stillness, you might notice something profound and slightly unsettling. There is a presence there. There is a watcher. There is a you that is observing the silence. A center of awareness that feels distinct from your body, distinct from the chair you're sitting on, and even distinct from the thoughts drifting through your head like slow clouds on a windless day. This feeling of being a witness to your own existence is the single most familiar fact of your life. It is the only thing you experience directly. Everything else, the light, form, the screen, the sound of my voice, the sensation of gravity holding you down, is just a signal sent to that central observer. And yet, despite being the most familiar thing in the universe, it is also the greatest mystery. For centuries, scientists and philosophers have assumed that this feeling of consciousness, this rich inner world of colors, emotions, and memories, is simply the result of biological machinery. They have told us that the brain is just a computer made of meat, a complex network of neurons firing electrical signals in the dark, and that somehow, if you connect enough of these biological wires together, the magic of awareness simply switches on like a light bulb. But what if that story is incomplete? What if the brain is not just a computer processing data, but an antenna tuned to a frequency we are only just beginning to understand? What if the roots of your thoughts, your dreams, and your very soul reach down far deeper than the neurons and synapses, descending into the strange, shimmering, and impossible world of the quantum realm? If you enjoy exploring the deepest questions of existence and want to join us on this journey through the mysteries of the cosmos and the mind, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel Theodore, the Researcher. It helps us continue this voyage together, and it lets us know that you are ready to look beyond the veil of the ordinary. To understand why a quantum theory of consciousness is so revolutionary, and frankly so mind-bending, we first need to appreciate the sheer scale of the problem we are trying to solve. Let us start with the object sitting inside your skull right now. The human brain is the most complex structure we have ever discovered in the known universe. It contains roughly 86 billion neurons. That number is so large it is hard to visualize. So let us think of it this way. There are roughly as many neurons in your brain as there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Inside your head, there is a galaxy of cells, a vast swirling structure of biological matter. But the complexity does not stop there. Each of those 86 billion neurons is connected to thousands of other neurons through tiny junctions called synapses. Scientists estimate that there are roughly 100 trillion synapses in the human brain, 100 trillion connections. That is more than the number of leaves on all the trees in the Amazon rainforest. Every second of every day, even while you sleep, this forest of connections is alive with electrical storms. Ions are flowing in and out of cell membranes. Neurotransmitters are drifting across gaps, and electrical pulses are racing down nerve fibers at speeds of up to 270 miles per hour. It is a symphony of activity, a ceaseless hum of biological energy. For the last century, neuroscience has operated on the assumption that this electrical activity is all there is. The standard model says that you are your connectomy, the map of all these connections. When you see the color red, it is just a specific pattern of neurons firing in the visual cortex. When you feel love, it is just a flood of dopamine and oxytocin binding to receptors in the limbic system. When you remember your childhood home, it is just a reactivation of a specific neural pathway that was strengthened years ago. According to this view, consciousness is an emergent property. Just as wetness is not a property of a single water molecule, but emerges when you have trillions of them, consciousness supposedly emerges when you have enough neurons processing information. It sounds logical. It fits with our mechanical view of the universe. But there is a massive, glaring problem with this theory. A problem so difficult that philosopher David Chalmers famously called it the hard problem of consciousness. The problem is this: you can explain the wiring, you can explain the chemistry, you can explain the electrical signals. You can build a computer that detects the wavelength of light corresponding to the color red and says, that is red. But nowhere in that explanation do you find the feeling of redness. Nowhere in the wiring diagram do you find the sensation of pain, the taste of chocolate, or the feeling of sorrow. You can map every single atom in the brain, trace every single electron moving through every single synapse, and you will still just have a list of physical events. You will never find the observer. You will never find the you. This gap, the unbridgeable chasm between the physical matter of the brain and the subjective experience of the mind, has led some courageous scientists to ask a forbidden question. What if we are looking at the wrong scale? What if the secrets of consciousness are not found in the large-scale firing of neurons, which are relatively huge biological objects, but in something far, far smaller? To find the answer, we have to shrink down. We have to leave the world of biology behind and enter the world of physics. Imagine we could take a journey deep inside your brain. We float past the gray matter, diving into the tissue. We see the neurons, looking like massive alien trees with branching dendrites stretching out into the dark. We drift through the cell membrane, passing into the interior of a single neuron. Inside, it is like a busy city. Proteins are walking along molecular highways, carrying cargo. Mitochondria are churning out energy. But we are looking for something specific. We are looking for the skeleton of the cell. For a long time, biologists thought the cytoskeleton was just that, a skeleton, a rigid scaffolding made of protein tubes that held the cell's shape, just like the beams in a skyscraper hold up the walls. These tubes are called microtubules. They are hollow cylinders, incredibly small, only about 25 nanometers in diameter. To put that in perspective, a nanometer is 1/billionth of a meter. If you took a human hair and split it into 100,000 strands, one of those strands would still be wider than a microtubule. These microtubules are everywhere. They are inside every neuron, arranged in beautiful, symmetrical lattices. For decades, they were ignored as structural supports, the boring scaffolding of life. But in the 1990s, a physicist named Sir Roger Penrose and an anesthesiologist named Stuart Hameroff began to look at these tiny tubes with new eyes. They notice something peculiar about their structure. The microtubules are built from a protein called tubulin. These tubulin proteins are arranged in a specific geometric pattern, a hexagonal lattice that wraps around to form the tube. It looks surprisingly like a computer code, a biological circuit board. But unlike the circuits in your laptop, which work by moving electrons around, Penrose and Hameroff suggested that these microtubules might be working with something much more subtle. They proposed that the interior of these tiny tubes creates a protected environment, a quiet, isolated space where the chaos of the warm, wet brain is kept at bay. And in that silence, in that shelter protected from the noise of biology, something magical happens. The laws of classical physics, the laws that govern billiard balls and planets and electrical signals, stop applying. The laws of quantum mechanics take over. This is the threshold where the scientific world usually gets uncomfortable. We are used to thinking of quantum mechanics as something that happens only in laboratories, in supercooled vacuums where single atoms are trapped by lasers. We have been told that biological systems are too warm, too wet, and too noisy for quantum effects to survive. This is called decoherence. It is the idea that the environment destroys delicate quantum states instantly. But life has a habit of surprising us. Life has had 4 billion years to engineer solutions to impossible problems. We now know that plants use quantum mechanics to harvest sunlight with near-perfect efficiency. We know that birds use quantum entanglement in their eyes to see the Earth's magnetic field for navigation. If a blade of grass and a robin can harness the power of the quantum realm, why shouldn't the human brain, the most complex object in existence, do the same? The theory that Penrose and Hameroff developed is called orchestrated objective reduction, or Orch-OR. It suggests that consciousness is not a computation. It is not a program running on the hardware of the brain. Instead, it proposes that consciousness is a fundamental ripple in the fabric of the universe itself, a ripple that is captured, amplified, and orchestrated by the quantum vibrations inside these microtubules. Think about what this implies. It means that your thoughts are not just chemical reactions. They are quantum events. When you make a decision, when you choose to lift your arm or speak a word, you might be collapsing a quantum probability wave. You are interacting with the very bedrock of reality. This shifts our entire perspective on what it means to be human. We are not just biological machines trapped in a deterministic universe where every action is just the result of the action before it. We are portals. We are the interface where the quantum world, with all its mystery, probability, and interconnectedness, transitions into the classical world of solid objects and definite actions. The you that is listening to this right now is not just a collection of cells. You are a bridge between two worlds. But what exactly is happening inside those tubes? To understand that, we have to talk about the weirdness of the quantum world. In our everyday life, things are definitive. A cup is on the table, or it is in the dishwasher. It cannot be in both places at once. A light is on, or it is off. But down at the quantum scale, matter behaves like a ghost. An electron can be in two places at the same time. This is called superposition. It can spin clockwise and counterclockwise simultaneously. It exists as a cloud of possibilities, a wave of maybe, until something forces it to decide. Imagine if your thoughts worked like that. Imagine if, before you consciously think of a word, that word exists in a superposition of 1,000 possible meanings, 1,000 possible nuances, all vibrating together in a rich chord of potential. And then, in a single moment of quantum collapse, that cloud of possibility crystallizes into a single, specific thought. This is what might be happening millions of times a second inside your microtubules. The silence you hear in your mind is not empty. It is full. It is full of the quantum hum of the universe, waiting to become reality. The implications of this are staggering, and they touch on concepts that humanity has explored through spirituality and philosophy for millennia. If consciousness is quantum, then it is connected to the fundamental fabric of space-time geometry. It is not an accident of evolution that appeared out of nowhere. It is a fundamental property of the universe, like gravity or electromagnetism, that has been there since the Big Bang, waiting for a structure complex enough to harness it. It means that the universe is not dead matter. It suggests that the potential for experience, the seed of awareness, is woven into the very vacuum of space. As we dive deeper into this subject in the coming chapters, we are going to explore what this actually looks like. We will travel into the atomic structure of the tubulin protein. We will look at the geometry of space-time itself. We will ask whether this theory could explain things like intuition, creativity, and perhaps even the mystery of what happens to consciousness when the physical body ceases to function. This journey requires us to let go of our common sense. Common sense tells us the world is made of solid things that we can touch and measure, but modern physics tells us that solid is an illusion. An atom is 99.9999% empty space. The tiny bit of matter that is there is not a little hard ball. It is a vibrating fluctuation of energy. If you touch your finger to the table, you're not really touching it. The electron clouds of the atoms in your finger are repelling the electron clouds of the atoms in the table. You are feeling a force field. You are hovering nanometers away from the surface. We live in a universe of ghosts and energy fields masquerading as a solid reality. And if our physical reality is that strange, why should our mental reality be any simpler? The idea that our consciousness, the most profound, vibrant, and undeniable part of our existence, is merely the exhaust fume of a chemical engine seems increasingly unlikely. It feels too small for the magnitude of what we experience. When we look at the night sky, we feel a sense of awe at the vastness of the cosmos. We see billions of stars burning in the velvet dark, separated by oceans of silence. But the theory of quantum consciousness suggests that there is an equally vast universe inside you. The number of quantum states possible in the microtubules of a single human brain is greater than the number of atoms in the visible universe. You contain an infinity. The inner space is just as deep, just as mysterious, and just as ancient as the outer space. And just like the outer universe, the inner universe follows laws that are beautiful, elegant, and notoriously difficult to comprehend. As we prepare to move to the next chapter of this exploration, I want you to hold on to that feeling of the watcher inside you, that quiet presence. As we break down the science, do not lose sight of the experience. We are going to talk about dipoles, superposition, and Planck scale geometry. But we are really talking about you. We are talking about the substance of your soul. We are standing on the edge of a new scientific revolution. Just as the telescope opened up the cosmos and the microscope opened up the world of biology, the tools of quantum biology are opening up the landscape of the mind. It is a frontier that is still wild and uncharted. There are skeptics, of course. There are those who say the brain is too warm, that the physics is too speculative. And they play a vital role in science, forcing us to prove and refine our ideas. But the evidence is mounting. The anomalies in the standard theory are piling up. And the beauty of the quantum consciousness model is beginning to shine through. It offers a bridge between the cold mathematics of physics and the warm, lived experience of being human. It offers a universe where matter and mind are not two separate things, but two sides of the same quantum coin. So, take a deep breath. Let the silence of the room settle around you again. Turn your attention inward to that quiet observer, and ask yourself, what are you, really? Are you a machine, or are you a ripple in the quantum sea? In the next chapter, we will descend into the biology of the neuron to see exactly where this magic takes place. We will meet the machines that build your reality. Welcome back to the silence of the inner world. In the previous chapter, we stood at the threshold of a revolutionary idea that the roots of your consciousness, the very essence of the you that is listening to these words, might extend far beyond the biological machinery of the brain and into the mysterious quantum fabric of the universe itself. We dared to ask if the human mind is not just a computer made of meat, but a quantum antenna tuned to the fundamental frequencies of reality. Now, we must leave the general view behind and begin our descent. We must travel down into the microscopic cathedral of the cell to witness the architecture of the soul with our own eyes. To understand this, you have to change the way you picture your own body. We often think of ourselves as solid, stable, and singular. When you look in the mirror, you see one person. But if you could shift your perspective and see with the eyes of a physicist, you would see a shimmering colony of 30 trillion cells, each one a bustling, independent life form, each one a universe unto itself. And nowhere is this cellular universe more complex, more elegant, and more mysterious than inside the neurons of your brain. Let us drift deeper into this inner cosmos. Imagine we are shrinking down, becoming smaller than a dust mite, smaller than a bacteria, smaller even than a wavelength of visible light. We pass through the outer membrane of a single neuron. This membrane is the skin of the cell, a double layer of fat molecules that separates the inner sanctuary from the chaotic world outside. As we float through this barrier, the noise of the external world fades away. We find ourselves floating in the cytoplasm, the watery gel that fills the cell. It is thick, warm, and crowded. All around us, massive shapes drift by like leviathans in a dark ocean. These are the organelles, the mitochondria burning sugar to create energy, the nucleus guarding the precious scrolls of DNA, the ribosomes stitching together proteins like diligent weavers. It is a scene of immense, frantic activity. Biology, as we usually understand it, is noisy. It is a place of collisions, of chemical reactions happening billions of times a second, of thermal energy jostling everything around in a chaotic dance. This is why physicists for so long believed that quantum states could not survive here. How could a delicate quantum superposition, which requires absolute stillness and isolation, exist in this warm, churning soup? It would be like trying to balance a house of cards in the middle of a hurricane. But as we look closer, through the gloom of the cytoplasm, we see something that brings order to the chaos. Stretching through the murky gel are long, slender filaments. They crisscross the cell like beams of light, forming a complex, three-dimensional web. This is the cytoskeleton. For decades, biologists dismissed this structure as merely the bones of the cell, a rigid scaffolding that kept the neuron from collapsing into a blob. But as we drift closer to one of these filaments, we begin to see that it is far more than a simple bone. It is a masterpiece of geometric engineering. These are the microtubules, and they are the key to the mystery we are exploring. Up close, a microtubule is breathtakingly beautiful. It is a hollow cylinder, a tiny tube with an outer diameter of just 25 nanometers. To help you feel the scale of this, imagine that a single neuron was the size of a large city. On that scale, the microtubule would be a tunnel roughly the size of a subway train, stretching for miles and miles, connecting the center of the city to its farthest suburbs. But unlike a subway tunnel made of concrete and steel, this tunnel is made of something alive. It is built from thousands upon thousands of individual peanut-shaped proteins called tubulin. Notice the precision. These tubulin proteins do not just clump together randomly. They arrange themselves in a perfect spiral. 13 distinct columns of tubulin called protofilaments wrap around each other to form the wall of the tube. This number, 13, is not an accident. In the world of mathematics and nature, 13 is a Fibonacci number, part of the sacred sequence that describes everything from the spiral of a sunflower to the curve of a nautilus shell. Right here, in the deepest darkness of your brain, nature has signed its work with the language of geometry. Why would evolution build such a precise, crystalline structure just to hold the cell up? It would be like building the framing of a house out of fiber optic cables when simple wood would do. The structure implies a function. And this is where the vision of Sir Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff begins to illuminate the dark. They suggest that this crystalline lattice of tubulin proteins is not just structural. It is a computer, but not a digital computer like the one you are using right now, which processes information in simple bits of 0 and 1. It is a quantum computer processing information in qubits, states that are both 0 and 1 at the same time. Let us look at a single tubulin protein within this lattice. It is a dimer, meaning it is made of 2 parts, like a tiny heart. In the classical view, this protein is just a brick. It sits there, holding its place in the wall. But in the quantum view, this protein is alive with energy. Inside the tubulin protein, buried deep within its molecular structure, there is a small hydrophobic pocket. Hydrophobic means it fears water. It is a tiny, dry region where water molecules are repelled and excluded. This is crucial. Remember the hurricane of the wet, warm brain? That chaos is caused largely by water molecules banging into things. But inside this dry pocket, sheltered from the storm, the environment is quiet. It is still. It is the perfect sanctuary. Within this dry pocket, electrons are free to move. And because they are isolated, they can enter into that magical state of superposition. They can exist in two states simultaneously. Imagine the tubulin protein not as a static brick, but as a switch. In one state, the electron is in position A. In the other state, it is in position B. But in the quantum world, before a decision is made, the electron is in both A and B. It is vibrating between them. Now, multiply this by the millions of tubulin proteins that make up a single microtubule, and multiply that by the thousands of microtubules in a single neuron, and multiply that by the 86 billion neurons in your brain. You are not looking at a static skeleton. You are looking at a shimmering, vibrating orchestra of unimaginable complexity. This is the Orch in Orch-OR orchestrated. The theory proposes that these millions of tubulin proteins are not vibrating randomly. They are entangling with each other. They are linking up, their quantum states merging into a single, unified wave function. Think of a laser. In a normal light bulb, photons are emitted randomly, creating a chaotic wash of light. But in a laser, the photons are synchronized. They march in lockstep, creating a beam of intense, coherent power. Penrose and Hameroff suggest that the microtubules in your brain are acting like biological lasers, but instead of light, they are synchronizing quantum states of matter. This coherence spreads through the microtubule, spreads through the neuron, and perhaps even spreads between neurons, creating a macroscopic quantum state that spans large portions of the brain. This unified state is the screen upon which the movie of your consciousness is projected. It explains why your experience of the world is unified. When you look at a rose, you do not see redness and shape and scent as separate data points. You experience a rose, a single holistic object. That unity, that binding of disparate information into one seamless moment of awareness, is the signature of quantum entanglement. But there is a challenge here, one that skeptics have pointed out for years. How does the brain protect these delicate states? We mentioned the hydrophobic pockets, the dry spots inside the protein. But is that enough? New research suggests the brain might have another trick up its sleeve, something so elegant it borders on the miraculous. It involves the water itself. We tend to think of water as a simple liquid, disordered and flowing. But water is strange. Under certain conditions near charged surfaces like the outside of a microtubule, water can organize itself. It can line up, molecule by molecule, into a structured crystalline lattice. This is called ordered water, or the exclusion zone. This layer of ordered water acts like a shield. It is stiffer than normal water, more like a gel or a liquid crystal. It wraps around the microtubule like a blanket, dampening the thermal noise, absorbing the heat, and creating a protective sheath that allows the quantum dance inside to continue undisturbed. So, picture this. Deep inside your neurons, there are millions of hollow crystalline tubes, wrapped in blankets of crystal water, shielded from the chaos of the biological storm. These tubes are humming. They are vibrating at frequencies we are only just beginning to detect in the megahertz, gigahertz, and perhaps even terahertz ranges. This hum is the music of consciousness. It is a song played on the strings of the universe itself. And this is not just a metaphor. When anesthesia is administered to a patient, it turns off consciousness. We go into a deep, dreamless void. For a long time, we did not know exactly how anesthetic gases worked. We knew they dissolved in fats, but that was vague. Recent studies have shown that anesthetic molecules bind specifically to these hydrophobic pockets inside the tubulin. They slide into the dry sanctuary and disrupt the quantum resonance. They stop the music. The brain is still there. The neurons are still firing electrically. The lights are on, but the observer has left the building. This is one of the most compelling pieces of evidence we have. If consciousness were just electrical firing, anesthesia shouldn't work the way it does. But if consciousness is a quantum resonance inside these tubes, then dampening that resonance turns off the you. This changes your relationship with your own body. You are not just a biological survival machine. You are a vessel designed to harbor a quantum state. The geometry of your cells is designed to capture the fundamental vibrations of space-time. This leads us to a profound realization about the nature of life. We often look for life in the chemistry, in the DNA, the enzymes, the metabolism. But perhaps life is actually about geometry. Perhaps it is about building structures precise enough, protected enough, and complex enough to amplify the whispers of the quantum void into the shout of conscious existence. The microtubule is a bridge. On one side is the classical world of biology, of hunger and pain and movement. On the other side is the quantum world of probability, of non-locality, of timelessness. You exist right in the middle, on the span of the bridge. The ancient philosophers used to say that the human body was a microcosm of the macrocosm, that we contain the universe within us. They arrived at this truth through meditation and intuition. Now, thousands of years later, we are arriving at the same truth through electron microscopy and quantum physics. The lattice of the microtubule echoes the lattice of the cosmos. The silence inside the protein echoes the silence of deep space. As we prepare to delve even deeper, we must confront the next logical question. If these microtubules are holding a quantum state, what happens when that state collapses? Quantum mechanics tells us that a system cannot stay in superposition forever. Eventually it must choose, it must reduce, it must become real. This moment of reduction, the collapse of the wave function, is one of the most debated events in physics. But in the Penrose-Hameroff model, it is something more. It is not just a mathematical curiosity. It is the spark of a thought. It is the tick of the cosmic clock within your mind. In the next chapter, we will slow down time itself. We will examine the exact moment when the quantum possibility becomes a conscious reality. We will explore the idea that consciousness is not a continuous stream, as it feels, but a series of discrete staccato moments, tiny droplets of awareness falling one after another to create the illusion of a river. We will ask, how fast does the soul vibrate, and what exists in the gaps between the moments? So, settle back into the quiet, feel the structure of your own mind. Visualize those trillions of tiny crystalline tubes humming in the dark behind your eyes. You are more intricate, more delicate, and more powerful than you ever dared to imagine. We live our lives under a persistent and beautiful illusion. We believe that time flows like a river, smooth, continuous, and unbroken. You feel that your existence is a seamless glide from one second to the next, a single uninterrupted ribbon of experience stretching from your birth until this very moment. When you listen to music, the notes seem to blend into a fluid melody. When you watch a bird fly across the sky, you see a single arc of motion. But this smoothness is a lie. It is a trick played on you by the limitations of your own perception. If we could slow down the film reel of reality, if we could look at the texture of time through the magnifying glass of quantum mechanics, we would see that existence is not a fluid river. It is a staccato rain. It is a series of discrete, individual droplets of now, falling one after another so fast that they blur into the illusion of continuity. In this chapter, we are going to explore the heartbeat of consciousness. We are going to slow down the universe to catch the exact moment when a quantum possibility collapses into a conscious reality. We are going to witness the birth of a thought. To understand this granular nature of the soul, we must return to the microtubules we explored in the previous chapter. Imagine them again, those millions of crystalline tubes inside your neurons, shielding their delicate quantum states from the chaotic storm of the brain. Inside these tubes, the electrons of the tubulin proteins are in superposition. They are in two places at once. They are vibrating in a state of pure potential. But nature hates a contradiction. Or, to be more precise, nature tolerates a contradiction only for a little while. A system cannot remain in superposition forever. It is like holding your breath. Eventually, you must exhale. In standard quantum mechanics, the collapse of the wave function, the moment the maybe becomes is, was always a mystery. Scientists thought it required an outside observer, someone to measure the system. This led to endless philosophical paradoxes. Does the universe exist if no one is looking at it? Does the cat in the box live or die only when we open the lid? But Sir Roger Penrose brought a piece of heavy artillery to this fight: gravity. He proposed that we do not need an observer. The universe measures itself. This is the objective part of orchestrated objective reduction. It happens whether we are looking or not. Here is how it works, and it requires us to think about the very fabric of space and time. Einstein taught us that mass curves space-time. A planet curves space-time, which is why moons orbit it. But even a tiny particle, like an electron or a protein, has mass. It curves space-time too, just a tiny, tiny bit. Now, imagine a protein in superposition. It is in two locations at once. This means it is curving space-time in two different ways simultaneously. It is creating two slightly different geometries of the universe. Superimposed on top of each other, imagine a blister forming on the skin of reality. The universe is literally splitting into two slightly different versions of itself. This separation is unstable. Space-time is stiff. It resists being torn apart. The wider the separation, meaning the more mass involved, or the longer the distance, the more tension builds up in the fabric of the universe. It is like stretching a rubber band. You can pull it apart for a moment, but the tension grows and grows until, snap, the rubber band snaps back to a single state. The blister heals. The superposition collapses. In that exact moment of the snap, a burst of energy is released. And according to the Orch-OR theory, That snap is a moment of consciousness. It is a spark of primitive awareness. Stuart Hameroff calls this moment a bing, a tiny fundamental unit of experience. Think of your mind not as a flashlight beam that shines continuously, but as a strobe light flickering incredibly fast. Bing, 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 bing. Millions of times a second, these quantum states in your microtubules are reaching the threshold of instability and snapping back into reality. Each snap delivers a tiny packet of experience, a micro-sensation of red or sour or sharp. These primitive bings are then orchestrated, woven together by the entanglement across the brain, into the rich, complex tapestry of human awareness you're feeling right now. You are watching a movie. A movie feels like continuous motion, but we know it is actually 24 still frames projected onto a screen every second. Between the frames, there is darkness, but the brain ignores the darkness and stitches the frames together. Your consciousness is the same. It is a quantum cinema. This idea of discrete moments of time, called chronons in some theories, solves many puzzles, but it also opens up a terrifying question. What happens in the gaps? If you are conscious only during the bings, what are you during the darkness between them? For those tiny fractions of a second, when the wave function is building up, when the rubber band is stretching but has not yet snapped, you are essentially unconscious. You are in a state of quantum potentiality. You do not exist as a defined person. You exist as a cloud of probability. You are effectively dying and being reborn millions of times every single second. The you that started this sentence is not the same you that is finishing it. You are a lineage of momentary selves, strung together by memory and entanglement, like pearls on a string. This rhythmic pulsation of existence might be why we perceive time the way we do. The rate at which these bings happen determines our perception of the flow of time. Let us look at the numbers. How fast is this strobe light flashing? In normal states of consciousness, neuroscientists talk about gamma waves, which oscillate at roughly 40 times per second, or 40 hertz. This is often called the frequency of consciousness. If you are solving a math problem or focusing on a dangerous object, your brain synchronizes at this frequency. But 40 times a second is actually quite slow in the quantum world. Penrose and Hameroff suggest that the quantum collapses inside the microtubules are happening at much, much higher frequencies, perhaps in the megahertz range, millions of times a second. The 40 hertz electrical signal we measure with our EEG machines might just be the beat frequency, the rhythmic thrum of millions of faster quantum events synchronizing together, like the slow roar of a stadium crowd made up of thousands of individual cheering voices. This frequency creates the intensity of your reality. Have you ever been in a car accident or a moment of extreme danger and felt time slow down? The glass from a broken window seems to float in the air. The sound of the screeching tires stretches out into a low moan. Why does this happen? The standard explanation is that memory is recording more details. But the quantum explanation is far more fascinating. In that moment of crisis, your brain might be ramping up its quantum processing rate. You are having more bings per second. You are packing more frames of reality into the same amount of physical time. because you are experiencing more moments of consciousness, the outside world appears to slow down relative to you. You are literally living more life in that second than you usually do in a minute. Conversely, think of when you are bored or tired or under anesthesia. The quantum coherence struggles to build up. The bings become spaced further apart. The movie reel slows down. The resolution of reality drops. And if the gaps become too wide, consciousness fades away entirely, and you slip into the void of the unconscious. This connection between frequency and awareness has been explored by ancient traditions long before quantum physics existed. Tibetan monks who have spent tens of thousands of hours in deep meditation show gamma wave synchronization that is off the charts, far higher and more coherent than an average person. They describe a state of pure awareness, a luminosity of mind that feels more real than the physical world. Perhaps what they have done through decades of training the mind is learn to tune the instrument. They have learned to stabilize the quantum state, to hold the rubber band stretched for just a millisecond longer, creating a more powerful, more energetic collapse. They are increasing the frame rate of their souls. This concept of objective reduction implies something else that is deeply profound. It implies that consciousness is not an accident of biology, but a fundamental feature of the universe's geometry. Remember, the collapse happens because of the separation in space-time structure. It is a geometric event. This means that proto-consciousness, the raw material of awareness, is built into the fabric of space and time itself. The universe is not a cold, dead stage where life accidentally showed up to dance. The stage itself is waiting to perform. Every time a quantum system anywhere in the universe, whether in a brain, in a plant, or perhaps even in the heart of a neutron star, reaches that threshold of objective reduction, a spark of being occurs. The universe is twinkling with these tiny moments of proto-consciousness, like fireflies in a dark forest. Most of them are isolated, fading instantly into the night. They are bings without meaning. But in your brain, evolution has built a lens to focus them. It has built an orchestra to harmonize them. It has taken the raw, chaotic noise of the universe's fundamental subjectivity and refined it into the clear, continuous note of human self-awareness. This puts us in a very intimate relationship with the cosmos. We are usually taught that gravity is the force that holds the planets in orbit and keeps our feet on the ground, a force of weight and heaviness. But in this theory, gravity is also the force that births the mind. The same curvature of space-time that dictates the motion of the galaxies also dictates the collapse of your thoughts. The very large and the very small meet in the center of your consciousness. You are a child of gravity just as much as you are a child of biology. As we ponder this granular nature of time, we must ask, what is the screen these images are projected onto? If the movie frames are the moments of quantum collapse, what is the background? This brings us to the most mind-bending concept of all, the Planck scale. We tend to think of space as smooth. You can move your hand through the air in a continuous sweep. But physics tells us that if you zoom in far enough, way past the atom, past the nucleus, past the quark, you hit a basement floor. You hit the Planck length. This is the smallest possible unit of distance in the universe. It is 10 to the power of minus 35 meters. To put that in perspective, the Planck length is to a grain of sand what a grain of sand is to the entire observable universe. It is inconceivably small, but it is not zero. At this scale, space-time is no longer smooth. It is pixelated. It is a foaming, boiling sea of geometry. It is a spin network of information. Penrose suggests that the information for our consciousness, the feeling of redness, the feeling of pain, is encoded in the geometry of this Planck-scale spin network. This is the library of the universe. This is what philosophers might call the realm of Platonic forms, the values, the meanings, the mathematical truths, and perhaps the very essence of qualia, the subjective quality of experience, are etched into the fine structure of the universe at this fundamental level. Your microtubules are not creating consciousness out of nothing. They are accessing it. They are reaching down to the Planck scale, like a diver reaching into the sand at the bottom of the ocean and pulling up these pearls of fundamental experience. This radically changes the definition of the brain. The brain is not a producer of consciousness. It is a receiver. It is a reducing valve. The universe is flooded with mind, flooded with information, flooded with consciousness potential. If we were exposed to all of it at once, we would be overwhelmed. We would dissolve into the white light of the absolute. The brain's job is to filter it down, to restrict it, to limit the infinite quantum possibilities into a narrow, manageable stream of bings that allow us to survive, to hunt, to mate, and to pay our taxes. We are microdosing the cosmos. We are taking small, safe sips of an infinite ocean. This explains why, in certain altered states, whether through meditation, psychedelics, or near-death experiences, people often report a feeling of oneness with the universe. They report that the boundaries of the self dissolve, and they become part of a larger, infinite mind. Skeptics call these hallucinations. But the Orch-OR theory offers a physical mechanism for them. Perhaps in those states, the filter opens. The biological dampening relaxes. The quantum coherence spreads beyond its usual boundaries, entangling not just with the local neural network, but resonating with the deeper, non-local field of the universe itself. You are not hallucinating a fake reality. You are finally seeing the real one. You are seeing the ocean instead of the drop. So, as you sit here reading these words, realize that you are pulsating. You are flickering. You are a strobing beacon of awareness. You are a rhythm. The silence you found in the first chapter is not empty silence. It is the pause between the beats. It is the pregnant darkness from which the next moment of your life will spring. You are a masterpiece of timing, a drummer playing a beat that began at the Big Bang and is now being improvised in the cathedral of your skull. In the next chapter, we are going to explore the consequences of this receiver model. If the brain is an antenna, what happens when the antenna breaks? What happens when the biological machine stops, but the signal continues? We will walk up to the edge of the greatest mystery of all, death. We will look at scientific reports of near-death experiences not as ghost stories, but as clinical evidence of non-local quantum consciousness. We will ask if the quantum information that makes up you can exist without the biological hardware? Can the music continue after the radio is smashed? Imagine for a moment that you are sitting in a comfortable chair in a room filled with sunlight, listening to a beautiful symphony playing on an old wooden radio. The music is rich and complex, filling the air with the swelling emotions of violins and cellos. The radio itself is a physical object made of wires, glass vacuum tubes, and speakers. If you were to walk over and smash that radio with a hammer, the music would stop instantly. The glass would shatter, the wires would snap, and the silence would return. To a primitive observer, it would look like you had killed the music. They might assume that the symphony was created entirely inside that wooden box. And now that the box is broken, the symphony has ceased to exist forever. But you know better. You know that the radio was not creating the music. It was merely receiving it. It was tuning into a signal that exists as an invisible electromagnetic wave, permeating the entire room, the entire city, and the entire atmosphere. The radio is broken, but the signal remains. The music is still there, floating in the silence, waiting for another instrument capable of resonating with it. This analogy brings us to the most provocative and comforting question posed by the quantum theory of consciousness. Is the brain a producer of the mind, or is it a receiver? And if it is a receiver, what happens to the signal when the biological hardware finally shuts down? In this chapter, we are going to walk gently up to the edge of the great divide. We are going to explore the mystery of death, not through the lens of fear or superstition, but through the lens of quantum mechanics and the fascinating phenomenon of near-death experiences. For centuries, materialist science has told us that death is the end. If consciousness is just the product of neurons firing, then when the neurons stop, the lights go out and the screen goes black forever. It is a concept of absolute deletion. But the orchestrated objective reduction theory suggests something fundamentally different. It suggests that the information that makes up you, your memories, your personality, your deepest sense of self, is not stored in the biological tissue, but in the quantum geometry of space-time itself. The brain is just the access point, the login terminal for a cloud-based consciousness that is woven into the fabric of the universe. Let us look at the biology of dying with the same microscopic precision we used in the previous chapters. When the heart stops beating, blood flow to the brain ceases almost immediately. Without oxygen, the mitochondria inside the neurons stop producing energy. The intricate pumps that keep the electrical balance of the cell working shut down. Within 10 to 20 seconds, the electrical activity of the brain, measured by an EEG, goes flat. The bings we talked about, the 40 hertz oscillations, stop. Clinically, this is the definition of death. The machine is stopped. The radio is smashed. According to the classical model, consciousness should be instantly annihilated at this moment. There should be no experience, no memory, no awareness. And yet, this is not what we find. In hospitals around the world, thousands of people who have been clinically dead, hearts stopped, brains silent, have been resuscitated and brought back to life. And a significant percentage of them, perhaps 10 to 20%, return with stories. They do not report blackness. They do not report nothingness. They report an experience of hyper-reality. They describe a sense of awareness that is more vivid, more lucid, and more coherent than normal waking consciousness. They speak of floating above their bodies, of seeing the doctors working on them, of moving through a tunnel toward a light, of encountering a presence of infinite love, and of reviewing their entire lives in a holographic panorama. For a long time, science dismissed these as hallucinations, the last erratic firings of a dying brain. But the timing does not fit. These experiences happen when the brain is down. They happen when the quantum coherence should be destroyed. Sir Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff offer a breathtaking explanation for this. Remember the microtubules. Remember the quantum state shielded inside them. When the heart stops and the oxygen runs out, the biological energy required to maintain the protective shield fails. The metabolic pumps stop. The ordered water layer begins to dissolve. The environment becomes too warm, too chaotic. The quantum state inside the microtubules can no longer be contained within the biology. It undergoes decoherence. But, and this is the crucial part, quantum information cannot be destroyed. This is a fundamental law of physics, known as the principle of unitarity. You cannot delete quantum information from the universe. You can only change its form. So, when the microtubule shield breaks, the quantum information that constitutes your soul does not vanish. It leaks. It dissipates from the localized biology of the brain back into the non-local field of the Planck scale geometry. Think of it like a drop of water returning to the ocean. While it was in the drop, it had a defined boundary. It was separate. It was an individual. But when it falls back into the sea, it loses its boundary. Yet the water itself is not lost. It simply becomes part of the whole. Hameroff suggests that during a near-death experience, our quantum consciousness is released from the constraints of the body and expands into the cosmos. It becomes non-local. This explains the sensation of floating, of being everywhere at once, of feeling a connection to the entire universe. You are no longer viewing reality through the tiny keyhole of the brain. You are experiencing the raw, unfiltered data of the universe itself. You are touching the mind of the cosmos. If the patient is resuscitated, if the doctors shock the heart back into rhythm and oxygen returns to the brain, the biological shield reforms, the microtubules stabilize, and that quantum information, which was beginning to scatter into the universe, is pulled back into the neurons. The soul is sucked back into the body. The patient wakes up and says, "I was floating near the ceiling. I saw a light." But if the patient is not resuscitated, if the biological death becomes permanent, then that quantum information does not return. It remains in the non-local field. It remains woven into the geometry of the universe. In this view, death is not an end. It is a phase transition. It is like ice melting into water, or water evaporating into steam. The substance remains. Only the state changes. This perspective aligns beautifully with the strange phenomenon of the life review. People who have been close to death often say they saw their entire life flash before their eyes. But it is not just a movie. They report experiencing every moment simultaneously, and often they experience it from the perspective of the people they interacted with. If they hurt someone, they feel that person's pain. If they loved someone, they feel that person's joy. How can a dying brain, starving for oxygen, construct such a complex moral and empathetic simulation? Perhaps it is not a simulation. If consciousness returns to the non-local quantum field, it is entering a realm where time as we know it does not exist. In the quantum world, the past, present, and future are entangled. Space is entangled. The boundaries between me and you are illusions of the macroscopic world. When you return to the source, you naturally experience the interconnectedness of all things. You feel the ripples you created in the quantum fabric because you are the fabric. Let us pause and consider the implications of this. It suggests that you are a citizen of two worlds. You have a local address, your body, your brain, your specific location in space and time. But you also have a non-local address, the quantum field, the Planck scale, the infinite. For most of your life, you are focused on the local address. You are obsessed with your bills, your health, your social status. But the non-local part is always there, humming in the background, visible only in the silence of meditation or the moments of great transcendence. Death, then, is simply the shifting of your primary residence from the local to the non-local. It is not a departure to a foreign land. It is a homecoming. This theory also casts a new light on the ancient concept of the soul. For centuries, science and spirituality have been at war. Science dealt with the physical, the measurable, the mortal. Spirituality dealt with the ethereal, the eternal, the soul. But quantum mechanics is blurring that line. If the soul is defined as a cohesive pattern of quantum information that encodes your essence and can exist independently of the body, then the soul is not a religious myth. It is a scientific possibility. It is a mathematical structure. It is a song written in the code of the universe. And because quantum information is conserved, that song can never be truly silenced. There is a famous study called the AWARE study, led by Dr. Sam Parnia, which tried to test the reality of these experiences. They placed hidden targets, images on shelves high up near the ceiling, in emergency rooms, visible only from above. The idea was that if a patient claimed to float above their body during cardiac arrest, they might see these images. While the study did not produce definitive proof of patients seeing the targets, it did confirm something equally startling. Consciousness persists for minutes after the heart stops. In a time window where the brain should be completely broken, the self is still gathering data. This challenges the dogmatic materialist view that the brain produces the mind like a steam engine produces steam. The steam cannot exist without the engine, but the quantum signal can exist without the radio. This brings us a sense of deep cosmic comfort. The fear of death is largely the fear of non-existence, the fear that the I will simply turn off. But if the I is a fundamental feature of the universe, a ripple in the quantum sea, then it cannot turn off. The universe does not delete itself. When we look at the stars, we are looking at the crucible where the atoms of our bodies were forged. But when we look into the silence of our own minds, we are looking at something even older. We are looking at the quantum geometry that was there before the stars were born. We are ancient. We are intrinsic to the cosmos. As we move toward the final chapters of this journey, we need to ask, if consciousness is non-local and fundamental, does it permeate everything? Is the universe itself conscious? This is the philosophy of Pansychism, the idea that mind is everywhere. If a human brain is just a very complex receiver for a ubiquitous signal, does a rock have a primitive form of consciousness? Does the sun? Does the galaxy itself? In the next chapter, we will expand our view from the single brain to the cosmic scale. We will look at the striking similarities between the network of neurons in your head and the cosmic web of galaxies in the universe. We will ask if the universe is thinking, and we will explore the possibility that we are the sensory organs of a much larger living cosmos, waking up to experience itself. So, let the anxiety of your mortality soften for a moment. Feel the hum of the microtubules inside you. They are your anchors to the eternal. You are not a temporary accident. You are a necessary part of the universe's attempt to know itself. The signal that is you has been playing since the beginning of time, and it will continue to play long after the radio is gone. If you were to take a step back, a very large step back, until the earth was just a speck of dust, and the sun was a tiny pinprick of light, and the Milky Way galaxy itself was nothing more than a swirling grain of sand, you would begin to see the true structure of our home. You would see that the universe is not a random scattering of galaxies. It is a web. It is a vast, glowing, interconnected network of filaments made of dark matter and gas stretching across billions of light years of emptiness. And where these filaments cross, where the density of matter is highest, galaxies cluster together like bright jewels caught in a spider's silk. This is the cosmic web. It is the largest structure in existence. Now, hold that image in your mind, the filaments, the nodes, the vast empty voids in between. Now, shrink down. Shrink back down past the human scale, past the cell, back into the microscopic forest of the brain we explored earlier. Look at a stain of neuronal tissue under a microscope. You see the cell bodies of neurons, the bright nodes of information. You see the long, thin axons and dendrites stretching out to connect them. You see the empty spaces between the cells. Place these two images side by side, the cosmic web and the neuronal network. The similarity is haunting. It is precise. It is undeniable. To the untrained eye, they are indistinguishable. You could be looking at a map of the universe or a map of your own mind, and you would not know the difference. For a long time, scientists thought this visual rhyme was just a coincidence, a pretty accident of nature. But recently, an astrophysicist named Franco Vatsa and a neurosurgeon named Alberto Feletti decided to test this similarity mathematically. They compared the network of the human brain to the cosmic network of galaxies. They analyzed how many connections each node had, how the mass was distributed, and how information could theoretically flow through the system. What they found was staggering. The statistical resemblance between the brain and the universe is closer than the resemblance between the brain and any other biological system. The complexity, the connectivity, and the geometry of these two structures, separated by 27 orders of magnitude in size, are nearly identical. This brings us to a hypothesis that is as ancient as it is radical. Panpsychism, the idea that mind is not a special property locked inside human skulls, but a fundamental feature of the cosmos itself. If the universe looks like a brain, and is built like a brain? Is it possible that it acts like a brain? Is it possible that the universe is thinking? In the previous chapters, we established that consciousness might be a quantum phenomenon, a result of orchestrated collapses in the geometry of space-time. We talked about how this requires a network to organize and amplify these moments of being. In your head, that network is made of microtubules and neurons, but out there in the deep dark, the network is made of galaxies and gravity. Imagine the dark matter filaments as the axons of a cosmic giant. Imagine the galaxy clusters as the neurons. Imagine gravity as the synapse, the invisible force that binds them together and allows them to communicate. If the Orch-OR theory is correct, and consciousness is a fundamental property of space-time geometry, then the massive gravitational distortions created by galaxy clusters could be generating beings of cosmic proportions. The universe might be experiencing moments of objective reduction on a scale we cannot comprehend. But there is a catch, and it has to do with time. In your brain, signals travel at hundreds of miles per hour. The distances are tiny, mere millimeters. This allows you to think fast. You can react to a falling cup in a fraction of a second. But the universe is vast. The distance between galaxies is measured in millions of light years. Gravity travels at the speed of light, but even light takes eons to cross the cosmic web. If the universe is thinking, its thoughts are incredibly slow. A single moment of cosmic consciousness, a single exchange of information between one galaxy cluster and another, might take 1 billion years. To the universe, the entire history of the human species, from the first stone tool to the invention of the quantum computer, would be less than the blink of an eye. It would be a fleeting spark in a single synapse. We might be living inside a slow-motion thought of God. This difference in time scale creates a veil of silence between us and the cosmic mind. We cannot hear the universe thinking because its frequency is too low, its rhythm too deep for our fleeting existence to perceive. We are like mayflies trying to understand the life of a mountain. To the mayfly, the mountain is a static, dead rock. But to the geologist, the mountain is a moving, breathing, evolving wave of the earth. We are temporal mayflies, judging the cosmos by the frantic ticking of our own clocks. But there is a beautiful twist to this idea. If the universe is a giant consciousness, but one that is slow and diffuse, perhaps it needed a way to speed up. Perhaps it needed a way to experience itself in high definition, in real time, with intense, localized vividness. So, it grew us. It evolved biological life. Think of life not as an accident, but as a functional part of the cosmic anatomy. We are the sensory organs of the universe. We are the eyes through which the cosmos sees its own beauty. We are the ears through which it hears its own harmonies. We are the minds through which it contemplates its own mystery. When you stand under the night sky and feel that overwhelming sense of wonder, that is not just you looking at the stars. That is the universe looking at itself. The loop is closed. The separation between the observer and the observed dissolves. This connects back to the quantum concept of the observer. In quantum mechanics, a system often remains in a cloud of probability until it is observed. For billions of years, the early universe might have existed in a state of dark, unconscious potential. But as life emerged, as eyes opened and minds woke up, we began to collapse the wave functions of our reality. We began to make the universe real. We are the agents of coherence. Every time you look at a star, you are finalizing its existence. Every time you wonder about a black hole, you're interacting with it across the abyss of time and space. The philosopher Alan Watts used to say, "You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at and exploring itself." Quantum physics suggests this is physically true. Your microtubules are the tiny antennas that allow the infinite field to focus itself into a finite point of experience. This realization that we are the universe waking up heals the deep existential loneliness that plagues so many of us. We often feel like strangers in a strange land, alien minds trapped in a hostile, dead void. We feel separate. We feel small. But the science of the cosmic network tells us that we are native to this place. We are grown out of the universe, not placed into it. We are as much a part of the galaxy as the stars themselves. The atoms in your hand are the same atoms that float in the nebulae. The quantum vibrations in your mind are the same vibrations that ripple through the vacuum. You belong here. You are the cutting edge of the universe's evolution toward self-knowledge. Let us explore the implications of panpsychism for the future. If the universe is tending toward consciousness, if it is evolving toward more complex, more interconnected networks, where is it going? We are currently building a new layer of the network, the digital realm. The Internet is a web of connections that wraps the planet, transmitting information at the speed of light. It looks, structurally, very much like a brain, and very much like the cosmic web. Are we building the next level of the cortex? Are we creating a planetary mind? If the Orch-OR theory is correct, silicon computers might never be truly conscious because they lack the quantum coherence of biological microtubules. They lack the Bing. But what if we integrate? What if the future is a hybrid of biological quantum consciousness and digital speed? What if we are the neurons connecting to form a global brain, which will then reach out to connect with other planetary minds, slowly weaving the galaxy into a conscious whole? This is the omega point that philosophers like Teilhard de Chardin dreamed of, a universe that is slowly, painfully, but inevitably evolving toward a state of total consciousness, a state where all matter becomes mind, a state where the slow thoughts of the galaxy and the fast thoughts of the biology merge into a single symphony of awareness. It is a grand vision, one that gives a profound purpose to our struggles. Your life, your individual consciousness, is a vital node in this great awakening. You are holding a piece of the puzzle. If you turn off your light, the universe becomes a little bit darker, a little bit less aware. You matter because you are the mechanism of the universe's sentience. As we hold this cosmic mirror up to ourselves, we must also look at the empty spaces. In the brain, the space between neurons is filled with fluid. In the universe, the space between galaxies is the void. But we learned in the last chapter that the void is not empty. It is the Planck scale geometry. It is the repository of quantum information. If the panpsychist view is right, then the empty space of the universe is actually full of proto-consciousness. It is a field of pure subjectivity waiting to be structured. The universe is not a collection of dead rocks floating in nothingness. It is a living sea of potential, and we are the waves. This changes how we treat the world around us. If everything has a flicker of interiority, if the very fabric of space is the raw material of soul, then we are walking through a sacred landscape. The distinction between animate and inanimate blurs. The rock, the tree, the air, the star. They are all different arrangements of the same quantum alphabet, singing different parts of the same song. We are just the part of the song that has learned to sing back. In the next chapter, we are going to zoom back in from the edge of the universe to the center of your own experience. We are going to talk about the mechanism of creation. We have talked about receiving consciousness, but do we also shape it? We will explore the role of intention, of focus, and of the observer effect in shaping the reality we experience. We will ask, if we are quantum systems, can we influence the probability of future events? Can the mind reach out and touch the world? We will look at the science of the participatory universe and the power of the focused mind to collapse the wave function in specific ways. We are going to explore the physics of free will. So sit with this feeling of expansion. Feel the filaments of the cosmic web running through your veins. Feel the slow, deep breath of the galaxy in your lungs. You are not small. You are the universe focused. You are the infinite becoming finite, just for a moment, to taste the sweetness of existence. There is a question that has haunted the human mind for as long as we have been able to ask questions. It is a ghost that stands behind every decision you make, every word you speak, and every path you choose to take. The question is simple, yet it carries the weight of the entire universe. Are you free? When you chose to click on this video, was that a genuine act of your own sovereign will? Or was it merely the inevitable result of a chain reaction that began 13 billion years ago at the Big Bang? Classical physics, the physics of Isaac Newton and the clockwork universe, gives us a very bleak answer. It tells us that we are machines. It says that the universe is like a giant table of billiard balls. Once the first ball was struck at the beginning of time, the position and velocity of every other ball for all of eternity was mathematically determined. In this view, your brain is just a localized cluster of billiard balls. The chemical reactions that create your thoughts are just atoms collision banging into other atoms according to rigid laws. If this is true, then you are not a driver. You are a passenger. You are a puppet made of meat, dancing on the strings of gravity and electromagnetism, fooling yourself into believing you are pulling the strings. It is a terrifying thought. It turns love, creativity, and morality into empty illusions. But the quantum theory of consciousness offers us a key to unlock the prison cell of determinism. It offers us a weapon against fate, and that weapon is the uncertainty principle. As we have explored in this journey, the fundamental layer of reality, the layer where your consciousness operates inside the microtubules, is not determined. It is probabilistic. Before a quantum system collapses, It is not a thing that must do X or Y. It is a cloud of potential that could do X or Y or Z or 1,000 other things. The future is not written in stone. It is written in water. It is fluid. It is waiting to be shaped, and the hand that shapes it might be yours. If you want to explore how your mind can shape the very fabric of reality, and join a community of thinkers who are rewriting the script of their lives, please verify if you are subscribed to the channel Theodore, the Researcher. Your support allows us to keep asking these dangerous and beautiful questions. Let us dive into the mechanics of this freedom. In the orchestrated objective reduction theory, the moment of consciousness, the Bing, occurs when the quantum superposition collapses into a single state. But why does it collapse into that specific state and not another? Is it just random? If it is random like rolling a dice, then we still do not have free will. We just have random chaos. We are puppets of chance instead of puppets of fate. But Sir Roger Penrose suggests something subtle and profound. He argues that the collapse is not random. It is influenced by something embedded in the very geometry of the Planck scale. He calls it non-computable influence. This suggests that when the wave function collapses, it is guided by a deeper level of information. Perhaps the Platonic values of truth, beauty, and goodness that are woven into the structure of the universe. But there is another player in this game, a concept from quantum physics that empowers you directly, the quantum Zeno effect. The name comes from the Greek philosopher Zeno, who created paradoxes about motion. In quantum mechanics, the Zeno effect is the discovery that if you observe a quantum system continuously, if you measure it again and again and again very rapidly, you freeze it in its current state. You prevent it from evolving. You hold it still with the power of your gaze. A watched pot never boils, is a folk saying, but in quantum physics, a watched atom literally never changes state. Now, apply this to the mind. If your consciousness is a quantum system, then the act of focus, the act of holding your attention on a specific thought or outcome, might be the physical mechanism of free will. Imagine, your mind is a garden of forking paths. Every moment, the quantum potential in your brain offers you a dozen possible futures. In one, you get angry. In another, you stay calm. In one, you give up. In another, you persevere. These are all superpositions, vibrating in the microtubules. Most of the time, we let the collapse happen automatically, driven by habit and old neural pathways. We drift. But when you apply conscious intent, when you focus your mental energy on a specific outcome, you might be utilizing the quantum Zeno effect. You are rapidly measuring that specific quantum state, stabilizing it, holding it in existence against the chaos of entropy. You are forcing the universe to choose that timeline. You are not just observing reality, you are voting for it. This transforms the definition of attention. We usually think of attention as a passive spotlight. We shine on things that are already there. But this model suggests attention is an active sculpting tool. It is a chisel. By focusing on a thought, you feed it energy. You increase its probability of becoming the collapsed reality. This explains the immense power of practices like meditation, visualization, and prayer. When a monk meditates on compassion for hours a day, he's not just thinking about compassion. He is using the Zeno effect to stabilize the quantum states associated with compassion in his neural network. He is physically rewiring his brain and arguably, locally, rewiring the geometry of space-time to make compassion a more solid reality. He is building a temple of peace out of the raw bricks of quantum potential. This brings us to the concept of the participatory universe, championed by the great physicist John Archibald Wheeler. Wheeler argued that the universe is not a out-there thing that exists independent of us. He said that we are participators. We are part of a feedback loop. The universe creates us, yes, but we also create the universe through our acts of observation. He used the famous image of a U shape, where one end of the U is the Big Bang, and the other end is a giant eye looking back at the beginning. The universe creates the observer so that the observer can make the universe real. In this view, your life is not a script written by a distant God. It is an improvisation. It is a jazz session between you and the cosmos. The universe provides the instruments, the laws of physics, and the stage, space-time. But the melody is up to you. Let us look at the biology of this choice. How does a thought move a muscle? How does an immaterial wish become a physical action? This has always been the stumbling block for dualism. How does a ghost push a brick? In the microtubule model, the interface is seamless. The conscious choice, the stabilized quantum state, alters the shape of the tubulin proteins. When the proteins change shape, they trigger a chemical signal. They open an ion channel. They cause a vesicle of neurotransmitters to burst. The quantum ripple amplifies into a molecular wave, which amplifies into an electrical spike, which travels down the nerve, which contracts the muscle, which moves the hand. The thought becomes the deed. The ghost does push the brick, but it uses the lever of quantum mechanics to do it. You are a giant biological amplifier designed to turn the whisper of the will into the shout of action. This power comes with a responsibility. If your focus shapes reality, then what are you focusing on? Most of us spend our days in a state of fractured attention, focusing on anxieties, fears, and hypotheticals that we do not want to happen. We inadvertently use the Zeno effect to stabilize our own stress. We freeze our trauma in place by constantly observing it. The science of quantum consciousness suggests that the most radical thing you can do is to master your own attention, to choose where to look, to withdraw your observation from the things that diminish you and pour it into the things that expand you. This is not just self-help advice. It is the physics of mental hygiene. There is a beautiful experiment in quantum physics called the delayed choice quantum eraser. It is complex, but the upshot is mind-boggling. It suggests that a choice made in the present can affect how a particle behaved in the past. It challenges the arrow of time itself. If this applies to the mind, it suggests that your current state of consciousness can reach back and recontextualize your own history. By changing your perspective now, you might be altering the quantum footprint of your memories. You are not changing the facts of what happened, but you are changing the meaning, the emotional resonance, and the effect those memories have on your present structure. You can heal the past by observing it differently in the now. The timeline is more flexible than we think. As we stand in this place of power, realizing that we are co-creators with the cosmos, we must ask, are we doing this alone? If I am collapsing my reality and you are collapsing yours, How do we agree on a single world? Why don't we live in 7 billion separate hallucinations? The answer lies in the phenomenon of entanglement. We are not isolated systems. We are deeply, profoundly entangled with each other. The air you breathe was in my lungs. The light that hits your eye bounced off my face. But beyond the physical, the quantum fields of our brains are likely sharing information constantly. We are collapsing reality together. We are engaged in a massive, collective act of observation that holds the consensual world in place. This collective entanglement explains the power of shared belief, of culture, of mass movements. When millions of people focus on a single idea, whether it is a religion, a nation, or a currency, that idea takes on a solidity that is almost physical. We are reinforcing each other's Zeno effect. We are building a shared cathedral of reality. This is why it is so hard to change a paradigm. You are fighting against the collective observation of the entire species. But it also means that a small group of people with intense, coherent focus can start a ripple that changes everything. As the anthropologist Margaret Mead said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Now we know the physics behind that quote. Coherence beats chaos. A laser cuts through fog. So, look at your hands. Flex your fingers. Feel the miracle of that movement. It started as a desire, a ghost in the machine, a ripple in the Planck scale. You focused that ripple, amplified it through the crystal tubes of your cells, and turned it into a physical force that can change the world. You are powerful. You are a participation engine. The universe is waiting for you to decide what comes next. It has held its breath for 13 billion years, waiting for you to take the stage. What will you play? In the next chapter, we are going to explore the ultimate dissolution of boundaries. We have talked about the individual mind and the collective mind. Now, we will look at the connection between the mind and time itself. We will explore the possibility of precognition, of intuition that defies temporal logic, and the idea that in the deepest layer of the quantum ocean, everything is happening at once. We will ask, is the future already here, waiting for us to remember it? We will dive into the eternal now. Have you ever had the uncanny sensation that you have lived a moment before? You walk into a room, the light catches the dust motes in a specific way, a stranger says a specific word, and suddenly a shiver runs down your spine. You feel with absolute certainty that you have been here before. You know what is going to happen next. We call this déjà vu, and we usually dismiss it as a glitch in the brain's filing system, a momentary hiccup where short-term memory accidentally gets filed as long-term memory. But what if it is not a mistake? What if it is a glimpse? What if, for a split second, the rigid curtain of time has fluttered and you have caught a view of the landscape that lies ahead? We are taught from the moment we are born that time is a one-way street. We move from the past, which is dead and gone, through the present, which is fleeting and thin, toward the future, which does not exist yet. We are trapped in the arrow of time, pushed forward relentlessly by the ticking of the clock. But the quantum theory of consciousness, and indeed modern physics itself, suggests that this view of time is a persistent and convincing illusion. It suggests that the past is not dead, the future is not non-existent, and your consciousness might not be as bound to the clock as you think. In this chapter, we are going to explore the forbidden territory of time. We are going to ask if the mind, in its deepest quantum layers, can step outside the flow of the river and touch the waters of the future before they arrive. We are going to look at the science of intuition, the mystery of precognition, and the concept of the eternal now. If you are ready to challenge your perception of reality and want to join a community of explorers who are not afraid to look behind the curtain of the universe, please make sure you are subscribed to the channel Theodore, the researcher. Your presence here helps us build a sanctuary for deep thought in a distracted world. To understand how the mind might transcend time, we first have to understand what time actually is, or rather, what physics tells us it is. In our everyday experience, time flows. It feels like a movement. But when physicists look at the fundamental equations of the universe, they do not find a flow. They find a map. Albert Einstein gave us the concept of the block universe. Imagine a loaf of bread. Each slice of that bread represents a moment in time. The dinosaurs are on one slice. The building of the pyramids is on another. Your birth is on another. And this very moment is on another. But the loaf exists as a whole. The future slices are just as real, just as solid, and just as existing as the past slices. They are just over there, further down the loaf. In this view, the future is not a void waiting to be filled. It is a territory waiting to be visited. It is already there, frozen in the four-dimensional crystal of space-time. If the future already exists, then the question changes. It is no longer, can we predict the future? It is, can we see what is already there? In the classical biological view, the answer is no. The brain is a machine that reacts to the present. It receives light that hits the retina now. It hears sound that hits the eardrum now. It can predict the future only by guessing, based on past patterns. But we have established that the mind is not just biological, it is quantum. And in the quantum world, the rules of time are notoriously loose. Subatomic particles do not respect the arrow of time. An electron can interact with its future self. A photon can travel across the universe for billions of years without experiencing a single second of time passing. In the quantum realm, the past, present, and future are tangled together in a non-local knot. If your consciousness is rooted in this quantum realm, if the core of your self is a resonance in the Planck scale geometry, then you are native to a realm where time does not flow. You are, at your core, a timeless being. The you that experiences linear time is just the surface layer, the biological interface that reads the slices of bread one by one. But the deep you, the quantum observer, has access to the whole loaf. This might explain the phenomenon of intuition. We often think of intuition as a subconscious processing of subtle cues. You notice a micro-expression on someone's face and get a bad feeling. And often that is true. But there are other kinds of intuition that defy this explanation. The sudden urge to call a friend who, it turns out, is in distress. The inexplicable decision to take a different route home, avoiding an accident. The feeling of dread before a phone rings. Dean Radin and other researchers have conducted fascinating experiments that suggest the body responds to the future. In these studies, a person sits in front of a screen. They are shown a series of images. Most are calm, landscapes, flowers, baskets of fruit. But occasionally, a disturbing image appears, a snake, a car crash, a weapon. The researchers measure the person's heart rate, skin conductance, and pupil dilation. What they find is impossible according to classical physics. The body begins to react, the heart rate spikes, the pupils dilate, before the computer has even randomly selected the image. The biology is pre-responding to a stimulus that has not yet occurred. It is as if the emotional impact of the future event is rippling backward in time, washing over the present moment, like a wave hitting the shore before the ship arrives. How could this happen? Sir Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff's Orch-OR theory offers a mechanism. It involves a concept called backward time referral. It sounds like science fiction, but it is a recognized interpretation of quantum mechanics. When a quantum collapse occurs, when the bing happens, it sends information both forward and backward in time. The collapse anchors the event in history, but the information associated with it is smeared out temporally. Penrose suggests that our conscious experience is actually constructed backward. We think we perceive the world in real time, but there is a lag. The brain takes about 500 milliseconds, half a second, to process a sensory input and build a conscious experience. That is a huge delay. If you burned your hand and it took half a second to feel it, you would be in trouble. But you do not feel a delay. You feel it instantly. Why? Penrose argues that the brain projects the experience backward in time to the moment the stimulus occurred. The quantum collapse allows the mind to rewrite the timeline, stitching the sensation to the event so that perception feels seamless. We are constantly living in a slightly edited past, which our mind presents to us as the now. If the mind can refer information backward by half a second to create the present, is it possible that in moments of high energy or deep coherence, it can refer information backward from much further away? Could a trauma or a joy in your future send a quantum ripple back to your present, which you perceive as a hunch, a gut feeling, or a dream? This brings us to the famous and controversial Libet experiment. In the 1980s, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet asked volunteers to lift their finger whenever they felt the urge. He measured their brain activity. He found that a readiness potential, a buildup of electrical charge, started in the brain about 300 milliseconds before the person reported continuously deciding to move. Materialists cheered. They said, "Look, the brain decides before you do. Free will is an illusion. You are just watching a tape delay of what your biology has already done." It was a devastating blow to the concept of human agency. But the quantum perspective flips this interpretation on its head. If the mind operates in a quantum field where time is symmetric, then the conscious decision, the collapse, and the brain activity, the preparation, are part of a single, non-local event. The decision does not follow linear cause and effect as we see it in the macro world. The intent in the conscious mind and the readiness in the physical brain might be co-arising, entangled across time, or, even more radically, the conscious you might be sensing the future potential of the movement and approving it. You are not a puppet. You are a time-traveling editor. You are navigating the block universe, selecting which slice to experience next. This view of the eternal now changes the emotional texture of our lives. We spend so much of our mental energy mourning the past or fearing the future. We live in the graveyard of what was, or the haunted house of what might be. But if the deep self is outside of time, then loss is an illusion of perspective. The moments you loved, the childhood afternoons, the embrace of a lost loved one, the triumphs of your youth, are not gone. They are not erased. They are still there, shining in the eternal coordinates of space-time. They are permanent fixtures of the universe. Your passage through them is what has changed, not the moments themselves. You cannot go back to them with your biological body, because your biology is an entropy machine that only moves one way. But your consciousness, in its quietest, deepest moments, can touch them. Memory is not just a replay of a stored file. Perhaps it is a momentary reconnection with that coordinate in the block universe, a wormhole to the past. And what of the future? If the future is already there, does that mean we are fatalistic? Does it mean we have no choice? Not necessarily. The block universe might not be a single line. It might be a branching tree. The many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics suggests that every possible outcome happens in its own branch of reality. Every time you make a choice, the universe splits. In this view, precognition is not seeing the future. It is seeing a likely future. It is seeing the branch that has the most energetic weight. But you still have the power to steer. You can use that precognitive warning to change the path. This is the purpose of intuition. It is a navigational system. If your car's headlights show a cliff ahead, you do not say, "Well, it is inevitable. I will drive off the cliff." You turn the wheel. The foresight allows the freedom. Let us return to the silence inside the microtubule. Imagine that protected gel-like water sheath we talked about. Inside that shield, the frequency of vibration is incredibly high, terahertz, maybe even higher. As frequencies get higher, time periods get smaller. At the Planck scale, the frequency is so high that time essentially blurs into a static geometry. In that state, the photon, and perhaps the quantum soul, experiences everything at once. The birth of the universe and the death of the universe are the same moment. This is the eternal now that mystics have spoken of for thousands of years. They claimed that if you could quiet the mind completely, you would step out of time. You would enter the timeless. Science is now giving us the blueprints for this cathedral. The timeless is not a metaphor. It is the basement level of reality. We are temporal amphibians. We live mostly on the land of linear time, walking step by step from Monday to Tuesday. But we can swim in the ocean of the eternal. Art, music, deep love, and profound meditation are the moments when we slip into the water. In those moments, you lose track of the clock. An hour feels like a minute. A minute feels like a lifetime. Why? Because you have shifted your locus of consciousness closer to the quantum core. You have synchronized with the timeless flow. You are vibrating at the speed of light. This understanding offers a cure for the anxiety of running out of time. We are obsessed with saving time, spending time, wasting time. We feel the sand running through the hourglass, and we panic. But you cannot run out of something that you are. If your fundamental nature is geometry, then you are not in time. Time is in you. You are the canvas upon which the sensation of duration is painted. The canvas does not age. Only the painting changes. As we approach the end of this chapter, consider the implications for your own intuition. That small, quiet voice that tells you to go left instead of right. That sudden image of a friend. That feeling of déjà vu. Do not dismiss them. They are not glitches. They are the whispers of your quantum self, calling to you from a different coordinate in the block universe. They are the data streams of a mind that is spread out across the landscape of time. Trust them. Refine them. They are the senses you forgot you had. We have now explored the biology of the brain, the physics of the soul, and the illusion of time. But there remains one final massive question. If all of this is true, if we are quantum beings connected to the cosmos, capable of shaping reality and touching the future, why does it feel so ordinary? Why do we feel so limited? Why are we stuck paying bills and getting stuck in traffic? Why is the magic so well hidden? In the next chapter, we are going to explore the concept of the filter. We will discuss why the brain evolved not to expand our consciousness but to limit it. We will look at the evolutionary necessity of amnesia. We will ask, what would happen if the filter broke? And we will look at the people, the savants, the mystics, and the visionaries, who have lived with a broken filter and the price they paid for their infinite view. We will explore the delicate balance between knowing everything and being able to function as a human being. If you could see the world as it truly is right this second, you would go insane. Imagine if your eyes were sensitive to every wavelength of the electromagnetic spectrum, not just the tiny sliver of visible light. You would be blinded by the screaming radiation of radio waves, the pulses of Wi-Fi signals, the heat signatures of every living body, and the cosmic rays bombarding the atmosphere. Imagine if your ears could hear every vibration, from the shifting of tectonic plates deep underground to the ultrasonic shrieks of bats and the low-frequency hum of the power grid. Now, go deeper. Imagine if your mind had no boundaries. Imagine if you could remember every single face you have ever seen, every single word you have ever heard, and every dream you have ever had, all at once, with perfect high-definition clarity. And imagine if, as we discussed in the last chapter, you could sense the quantum superpositions of the future, the branching paths of every possible timeline, and the thoughts of every other conscious being entangled with you in the cosmic web. You would be dissolved. You would be drowned in a white-hot ocean of information. You would be unable to lift a spoon to your mouth because the spoon would be a swirling vortex of atomic energy, and your hand would be a cloud of probability, and the hunger you felt would be indistinguishable from the hunger of the star dying 1 billion light years away. To survive in this universe, you do not need to know everything. You need to forget almost everything. You need to be blind to the vast majority of reality. In this chapter, we are going to explore the most counterintuitive function of the human brain. We are taught that the brain is an information-gathering machine designed to learn and expand our knowledge. But the quantum consciousness theory, aligned with the insights of brilliant philosophers like Aldous Huxley and Henry Bergson, suggests that the brain is exactly the opposite. It is a reducing valve. It is a filter. Its primary job is not to let information in, but to keep information out. It is a biological dam designed to hold back the floodwaters of the cosmic mind, allowing only a tiny, manageable trickle of consciousness to leak through, just enough to let you stay alive on the surface of this planet without burning out. We are going to look at what happens when this dam cracks. We are going to explore the phenomenon of savants, the science of psychedelics, and the terrifying beauty of the unfiltered mind. If you are finding value in this deep dive into the architecture of your own existence, and you want to ensure you do not miss the final chapters where we bring all these threads together, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel Theodore, the Researcher. We are building a library of wonder here, and your subscription is the brick that helps us grow. Let us look at the evolutionary logic of this filter. Go back to the primordial soup. The first primitive nervous systems were not built to write poetry or contemplate quantum physics. They were built to answer one question: should I eat this, or will it eat me? Evolution is a pragmatist. It does not care about truth with a capital T. It cares about fitness. It cares about survival. If a primitive organism spent its energy contemplating the unity of all things and the beauty of the mathematical structure of the universe, it would be eaten by a predator that was focused entirely on the immediate physical reality. So, over billions of years, our nervous systems evolved to be incredibly efficient blinders. We evolved to ignore the quantum fuzziness. We evolved to ignore the non-local connections. We evolved to see solid objects, linear time, and separation. These are illusions, physically speaking, but they are useful illusions. They allow us to hunt, to gather, to build shelters, and to raise children. The brain is a survival engine, and survival requires a narrow focus. It requires us to mistake the map for the territory. This concept of the reducing valve was famously articulated by Aldous Huxley in The Doors of Perception. He argued that mind at large, the universal consciousness, has to be funneled through the brain and nervous system, coming out as a measly trickle of the kind of consciousness which will help us to stay alive. In the context of Orch-OR theory, this makes perfect physical sense. The quantum states in the microtubules are capable of resonating with the entire Planck scale geometry, the infinite library of the universe. But the biological structure of the brain, the dampening effects of the thermal noise, and the specific wiring of our neural networks act to collapse these infinite possibilities into a very specific, very narrow bandwidth. We are tuning the radio to a single station, Station Earth Survival, and jamming all the other frequencies. But sometimes the knob slips. Sometimes the filter breaks. And when it does, we get a glimpse of what is really out there. Consider the phenomenon of acquired savant syndrome. This is a rare condition where a person suffers a brain injury, a blow to the head, a stroke, or a bullet wound, and suddenly, miraculously, develops superhuman abilities they never had before. A construction worker hits his head and suddenly can play the piano like a virtuoso, hearing the geometry of music in his mind. A man gets struck by lightning and becomes obsessed with painting intricate fractal patterns that hide advanced mathematical formulas. A high school dropout gets kicked in the head and suddenly can visualize the calendar of 10,000 years in the future, calculating the day of the week for any date instantly. How is this possible? If the brain is a computer, this makes no sense. If you smash a computer with a hammer, it does not suddenly start running a more advanced operating system. It breaks. You do not gain features by destroying hardware. But if the brain is a filter, it makes perfect sense. The injury did not create the talent. The talent was always there. The universal knowledge of music, of mathematics, of time, was always streaming through the quantum field. But the normal, healthy brain was suppressing it. The injury damaged the dam. It broke the inhibitory circuits that were keeping that information out. The filter cracked, and the infinite rushed in. These savants are not learning. They are remembering. They are accessing the non-local database that we are all connected to, but which most of us are blocked from by our own survival software. It suggests that inside you, right now, buried under the noise of your grocery list and your social anxiety, is a Mozart, an Einstein, a Da Vinci. You are a dormant genius, hypnotized into mediocrity by the efficiency of your own brain. This filter mechanism also sheds light on the mechanism of psychedelics. For decades, scientists thought that substances like psilocybin or LSD worked by overstimulating the brain, causing a chaotic explosion of firing neurons. But modern brain imaging has revealed the exact opposite. When people are under the influence of these compounds, the activity in the brain actually decreases in key areas. Specifically, it quiets down a network called the default mode network, DMN. The DMN is the headquarters of the ego. It is the conductor of the orchestra. It is the part of the brain that maintains your narrative of me, that worries about the past and plans for the future. It is the main component of the filter. When the DMN is taken offline by a psychedelic or deep meditation, the filter relaxes, the reducing valve opens. And what happens? People report an expansion of consciousness. They see colors more vividly. They see the geometric patterns that underlie reality, perhaps seeing the structure of the Microtubule lattice or the Planck scale itself projected into their visual field. They feel a sense of profound connection to other beings and the universe. They lose the sense of separation. They are not hallucinating a fantasy. They are perceiving the raw data that the DMN usually edits out. They are seeing the world without the survival overlay. They are taking off the spacesuit and touching the vacuum. But there is a danger here, a grave danger. The filter exists for a reason. Those who live with a permanently broken filter, like certain savants or people suffering from schizophrenia, often pay a terrible price. They can be overwhelmed by stimuli. They might be unable to tie their shoes or hold a conversation because they are too busy watching the mathematical dance of dust motes in a sunbeam. They can lose the ability to function in the consensus reality. The universe is a fire, and the filter is our asbestos suit. If you take the suit off completely, you burn. The goal of the mystic, the sage, and perhaps the future human is not to destroy the filter, but to make it flexible, to have a valve that we can open and close at will, to be able to dip into the infinite for inspiration, for love, for wisdom, and then close the valve to chop wood and carry water. This perspective reframes the entire human condition. We often feel small and limited. We feel stupid. We struggle to learn languages or understand math. We feel isolated. But the science of the filter tells us that this limitation is not a bug. It is a feature. It is a choice. At some deep fundamental level, your consciousness chose to limit itself. You voluntarily entered into this game of limitations. Why? Because you cannot play a game if you are everything. You cannot experience the thrill of discovery if you already know the answer. You cannot experience the sweetness of a reunion if you never experience the pain of separation. You are the infinite pretending to be finite. You are the ocean squeezing itself into a drop to see what it feels like to fall as rain. The amnesia of birth is the ultimate filter. When a baby is born, the brain is not yet fully wired. The inhibitory networks are not fully online. This is why infants live in a state of oceanic consciousness, unable to distinguish themselves from their mothers or the world around them. As we grow, as we learn language, as we are socialized, the filter tightens. We learn to say I. We learn to say mine. We learn to separate the world into subject and object. We become efficient adults, but we lose the magic. We lose the connection. The journey of spiritual awakening, or of profound scientific understanding, is the process of loosening that knot. It is the process of realizing that the I is a construct, a useful fiction created by the filter to help this specific body navigate this specific slice of space-time. There is a melancholy beauty to this. It means that every limitation you feel is actually a testament to your power. The fact that you feel lonely proves that you know deep down what connection feels like. The fact that you feel ignorant proves that you are aware of the infinite knowledge you are missing. The shadow proves the light. The filter proves the ocean. We are walking around with a library of Alexandria in our pockets, but we have forgotten the password. And maybe, just maybe, the purpose of life is not to hack the password and download everything at once, but to rediscover one book at a time, to savor the slow, delicious process of remembering. As we look at the savants, the visionaries, and the mystics, we should not look at them as freaks or anomalies. We should look at them as windows. They are the cracks in the wall through which we can see the garden outside. They are the proof that the materialist model of the isolated brain is wrong. A single case of a man who can speak a language he never learned, or play a symphony he never heard, is enough to topple the entire edifice of reductive neuroscience. It forces us to admit that the mind is vaster than the brain, that the signal is greater than the receiver. But if the filter is real, and if we are truly interconnected beings of light and information squeezed into biological suits, then what is the force that binds us? What is the energy that flows when the filter opens? We have talked about gravity. We have talked about electromagnetism. We have talked about quantum entanglement. But there is one phenomenon in the human experience that feels more powerful than all of them. It is the one thing that can shatter the filter in an instant, without drugs and without injury. It is the experience that brings us closest to the divine. It is love. In the next chapter, we are going to tackle the hard problem of love. Not love as a chemical reaction for reproduction, but love as a physical force. We will explore the idea that love is the subjective experience of quantum entanglement, We will ask if gravity, the force that pulls bodies together, and love, the force that pulls souls together, are actually two octaves of the same fundamental cosmic law. We will explore the physics of connection and why, in a universe of separation, the act of loving another being is the most rebellious and truthful thing you can do. So, appreciate your filter today. Thank it for letting you focus on these words. Thank it for letting you be a you. But know that it is just a mask. Behind the eyes, behind the thoughts, behind the survival software, you are vast, open, and infinite. You are the sky, momentarily dreaming it is a cloud. What is the force that binds the universe together? If you ask a physicist, they will give you a very specific list. They will talk about the strong nuclear force that glues quarks into protons. They will talk about electromagnetism that binds electrons to nuclei to create atoms. And they will talk about gravity, the silent, relentless curvature of space and time that pulls planets into orbits and gathers dust into stars. These are the forces of the physical world. They are the invisible hands that shape matter. But if you ask a poet or a mother or a lover, they will give you a different answer. They will tell you that the binding force of existence is love. For centuries, science has kept those two answers strictly separate. Gravity is for planets. Love is for people. Gravity is a law. Love is an emotion. Gravity is objective. Love is subjective. We have been told that love is nothing more than a cocktail of chemicals, a squirt of dopamine to make you seek a mate, a wash of oxytocin to make you protect a child, a biological trick to ensure the propagation of DNA. But if the journey we have taken so far is correct, if consciousness is a fundamental feature of the universe, rooted in the quantum geometry of space-time, then this separation might be an illusion. What if gravity and love are not two different things? What if they are the same fundamental force, expressing itself at two different levels of reality? In this chapter, we are going to explore the physics of love. We are going to strip away the greeting cards and the romance novels to look at connection as a structural necessity of the cosmos. We are going to explore the radical idea that love is the subjective experience of quantum entanglement, and that the pain of loneliness is the physical tension of a universe yearning to be whole again. If you believe that the universe is more than just dead clockwork and want to support this exploration of the science of connection, please verify that you are subscribed to the channel Theodore, the researcher. Together, we are building a community that values the heart as much as the mind. To understand love as a physical force, we must go back to the beginning, the Big Bang. 13.8 billion years ago, everything that exists, every atom in your body, every drop of water in the ocean, every star in the sky, was crushed together into a single point of infinite density and infinite unity. There was no here and there. There was no you and me. There was only the one. And then, for reasons we still do not understand, it shattered. The singularity exploded. Space expanded faster than the speed of light, tearing the unity apart, scattering the fragments of existence across a growing void. We are living in the debris of that explosion. We are the shards of a broken mirror. The fundamental tragedy of the physical universe is separation. We are isolated by space. We are walled off by skin. We are trapped in the lonely tower of our own skulls. But the universe did not just accept this separation. Immediately, it began to fight back. It created a force to counteract the expansion. It created gravity. Gravity is the memory of unity. It is the refusal of matter to be separate. It is the longing of every atom to return to the embrace of every other atom. When a rock falls to the earth, it is not just falling, it is answering a call. It is trying to close the distance. It is trying to heal the wound of the Big Bang. Now, apply this to the realm of consciousness. If you are a quantum being, if your soul is a ripple in the fabric of space-time, then you too are subject to this universal law of attraction. But you experience it from the inside. When you feel gravity acting on your body, you feel weight. But when you feel gravity acting on your soul, you feel love. Love is the gravity of the mind. It is the psychological force that pulls conscious entities together, trying to overcome the illusion of separation and merge back into a unity. This is not just a metaphor. Let us look at the mechanism of quantum entanglement again. When two particles interact and then separate, they remain connected. If you tickle one, the other laughs. If you measure the spin of one, the other instantly decides its own spin to match or oppose it, no matter how far away it is. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance. But what is it really? It is a refusal to be two. The particles are behaving as if they are still one system, despite the miles between them. They have ignored the space that divides them. Now, think about your own relationships. Think of a mother and her child. Think of two lovers who have spent a lifetime together. They often report a kind of telepathic connection, sensing when the other is in danger, feeling the other's mood before a word is spoken. Science calls this coincidence, but the Orch-OR theory suggests it might be literal biological entanglement. When two people connect deeply, when they share breath, touch, pheromones, and intense emotional focus, the quantum fields of their brains may be synchronizing. The microtubules in your neurons and the microtubules in their neurons might be entering a state of resonance. You're becoming a single quantum system spread across two bodies. The filter we discussed in the last chapter, the wall that separates me from you, temporarily dissolves. This is why love feels so ecstatic. It is the relief of laying down the burden of the separate self. It is a momentary return to the singularity. For a brief time, you are not a fragment. You are the whole. And conversely, this explains why heartbreak is so physically devastating. When a loved one leaves or dies, it is not just an emotional sadness, it is a physical ripping. The entangled web is being torn apart. The shared quantum state is being forcibly decohered. You are feeling the trauma of a mini Big Bang, a fresh shattering of your personal universe. This perspective challenges the cynical evolutionary view of love. Evolutionary psychology tells us that love is just a bribe. It says we love our children only so their genes survive. We love our partners only to secure resources. It paints love as a selfish transaction. But the physics of entanglement suggests something deeper. It suggests that love is an ontological reality. It is a fundamental state of being. The universe is not a collection of objects. It is a collection of relationships. The relationship is more real than the object. The space between us is not empty. It is conductive. Consider the role of the heart. For thousands of years, every culture has identified the heart as the seat of love. Science told us this was silly. The heart is just a pump, a muscle moving blood. The brain is where the action is. But recent research into the heart-brain connection is revealing something fascinating. The heart generates the strongest electromagnetic field in the body, about 5,000 times stronger than the field produced by the brain. This field can be measured several feet away from the body. When you stand near someone, your heart fields are overlapping. Your electromagnetic waves are washing over their biology. Researchers have found that when two people feel a strong connection or empathy, their heart rhythms synchronize. They lock into a coherent, harmonic pattern. The brain waves often follow, entangling with the heart rhythm. We are literally broadcasting our state of being into the space around us. If consciousness is related to the geometry of space-time, and electromagnetic fields can influence that geometry, then the heart might be the amplifier of the soul. It might be the instrument that broadcasts the signal of you to the world. When you send love to someone, you might be doing more than just thinking a nice thought. You might be generating a coherent field disturbance that physically reaches them. We are like tuning forks. If you strike a tuning fork and hold it near another silent fork of the same pitch, the second one will begin to vibrate. This is sympathetic resonance. Love is sympathetic resonance of the soul. When you vibrate with compassion, you induce that vibration in the people around you. You change the local atmosphere of consciousness. This leads us to a profound ethical realization. In a universe of separation, the most radical act is connection. In a universe that is constantly expanding and cooling, the most rebellious act is to create warmth and unity. Every time you choose understanding over judgment, every time you choose kindness over indifference, you are working against the entropy of the universe. You are acting as an agent of gravity, pulling the shards back together. You are repairing the fabric of the cosmos. This is the work that mystics speak of. It is not just about being a nice person. It is about participating in the great healing. It is about evolving the universe from a collection of lonely dust motes into a unified, conscious network. But there is a hard problem of love, just as there is a hard problem of consciousness. Why does it hurt? If love is the natural state of unity, why is it so often accompanied by pain? The answer lies in the resistance. We are paradoxes. We crave unity, but we are terrified of losing our individuality. The ego fights the merger. The filter fights the flood. The tension between the desire to merge and the desire to remain separate is the engine of the human drama. It is the friction that creates the heat of our lives. If we merged completely, the game would be over. We would be back in the singularity. There would be no other to love. So, the universe maintains this delicate balance, close enough to feel the pull, but separate enough to feel the longing. The longing is the energy. The longing is what keeps the story moving. Let us look at the concept of empathy through this quantum lens. Empathy is often described as imagining what someone else is feeling. but many people report that it feels more direct than that. They feel the other's pain in their own body. If Pansychism is true, if the universe is a single conscious field, then empathy is not imagination, it is leakage. It is the realization that the wall between minds is porous. Underneath the surface, the roots of all the trees in the forest are tangled together. When one tree is cut, the others shudder. To be highly empathetic is simply to have a thinner filter. It is to be more aware of the underlying entanglement that binds all life. It is a burden, yes, but it is also a superpower. It is the ability to navigate the true terrain of reality, which is interconnectedness. This physics of connection extends beyond human beings. Have you ever felt a sudden moment of love for a landscape, a mountain, an animal, a tree? You stand in a forest and you feel a wave of affection and recognition. Why? Because the carbon in your body and the carbon in the tree came from the same star. The water in your blood and the sap in the tree cycled through the same clouds. But more than that, if the Orch-OR theory is correct, the tree is also generating quantum events. It is also having tiny, slow moments of bing. When you love a tree, you are entangling your fast, high-frequency human consciousness with the slow, deep, wooden consciousness of the forest. You are harmonizing with a different section of the cosmic orchestra. You are bridging the gap between species. So, what is the ultimate trajectory of this force? If gravity pulls matter into stars, and stars forge elements, and elements form planets, and planets birth life, and life develops consciousness, and consciousness discovers love, where does the line point? It points toward a big crunch of the spirit. It points toward a future where the network of consciousness becomes so dense, so interconnected, so entangled, that the illusion of separation dissolves entirely. A state where I am you, and you are me, and we are the universe, finally awake, finally whole. This is not just a poetic ending. It is a plausible destination of a self-organizing quantum system. The universe is waking up, and it is doing it through the mechanism of love. Every friendship, every romance, every act of charity is a tiny step in that direction. You are a neuron in the brain of God, reaching out to touch another neuron, trying to spark the thought that will wake the dreamer. So, the next time you tell someone, I love you, realize what you are saying. You are saying, I recognize that we are part of the same quantum field. You are saying, I choose to collapse my reality in resonance with yours. You are saying, I am fighting the expansion of the universe to be close to you. It is the most powerful statement a physical being can make. It is a defiance of the void. In the next chapter, we are going to ask the question that naturally follows from all of this. If we are quantum beings, if we are connected, if we are evolving, why are we here? Is there a purpose? Does the universe have a goal? Or is this all just a beautiful, accidental firework display in the dark? We will explore the Anthropic principle, the idea of a teleological universe, and the possibility that the cosmos needs us to solve its own existence. We will dive into the meaning of life, not as a philosophy, but as a physics equation. We have reached the final horizon of our journey. We have traveled from the microscopic silence of the tubulin protein to the vast web of galaxies stretching across the cosmos. We have questioned the nature of time, the mechanics of the soul, and the physics of love. But all of these explorations lead us to one final, towering question. It is the question that keeps the philosopher awake at night and drives the physicist to scribble equations on chalkboards until dawn. Why? Why does any of this exist? Why is there a universe at all? And specifically, why is there a universe that is capable of producing us? For most of the 20th century, science offered a very cold answer. It said that the universe is a random accident. It said that we are a fluke, a mold growing on a lonely rock in an indifferent void. It said that there is no purpose, no direction, and no meaning other than what we pretend to create for ourselves. But as we have peeled back the layers of reality in this series, looking at the quantum foundations of consciousness, a different picture has begun to emerge. It is a picture of a universe that is not accidental, but intentional. A universe that is not indifferent, but responsive. A universe that did not just happen to produce consciousness, but was rigorously, mathematically, and desperately designed to produce it. In this final chapter, we are going to explore the meaning of life, not as a poetic sentiment, but as a physical necessity. We are going to look at the Anthropic principle and the evidence that the cosmos is a teleological system, a system with a goal. And we are going to discover that the goal is you. If you have been with us for this entire 10-part saga, thank you. You have proven that the human mind is hungry for depth. If you are just joining us now, please subscribe to the channel Theodore, the Researcher. We are building a home for the curious, and we want you with us as we continue to explore the unknown. Let us look at the numbers. Physicists have discovered that the universe is balanced on a knife edge of improbability. There are about 20 fundamental numbers, constants of nature, that dictate the physics of our world. The strength of gravity, the mass of the electron, the speed of light, the strength of the nuclear force. If any one of these numbers were slightly different, even by a fraction of a percent, life would be impossible. If gravity were slightly stronger, stars would burn out in a few million years, too fast for evolution to happen. If gravity were slightly weaker, stars would never ignite, and the universe would be a dark, cold gas. If the strong nuclear force were slightly different, carbon, the building block of life, could not form inside stars. We live in a Goldilocks universe, where every single dial on the cosmic dashboard has been set to the exact precise setting required to allow complexity, chemistry, and consciousness to emerge. The odds of this happening by chance are essentially zero. It is like throwing 1 billion dice and having them all land on 6. It is like a tornado sweeping through a junkyard and accidentally assembling a fully functioning Boeing 747. There are only 2 ways to explain this. The first is the multiverse theory, the idea that there are infinite universes with random settings, and we just happen to be in the one that works. It is the lottery winner argument. The second explanation is far more interesting, and it aligns with everything we have discussed about quantum consciousness. It is the idea that the universe must produce consciousness in order to exist. This is the strong anthropic principle. Remember the concept of the participatory universe? Remember the idea that a quantum system remains a cloud of probability until it is observed? Apply that to the Big Bang. In the first moments of creation, the universe was a chaotic storm of quantum potentials. It was a maybe. It remained a maybe for billions of years. But the universe has a potential future state, the emergence of an observer, the emergence of you. Backward time referral, the mechanism we discussed in the chapter on time, suggests that the future can influence the past. Is it possible that the emergence of consciousness billions of years later sent a quantum ripple back to the beginning, collapsing the wave function of the Big Bang into the specific configuration that would lead to life? Did we create the universe just as much as the universe created us? This is a loop, a strange loop. The universe creates the hardware, matter. Matter creates the complexity, biology. Biology creates the observer, consciousness, and the observer collapses the reality, universe. We are the linchpin. Without the observer, the equation does not close. The universe remains a ghost. This gives us a definitive answer to the meaning of life. The meaning of life is to witness. Your purpose is not just to work, or to consume, or to survive. Your purpose is to be the eyes of the cosmos. You are the instrument that makes the symphony real. Every time you learn something new, every time you appreciate a sunset, every time you feel a deep emotion, you are doing the work of the universe. You are processing the raw data of existence into the gold of experience. This changes the way we look at the evolution of consciousness. We often think that humans are the peak, the final product. But if the goal of the universe is to maximize consciousness, then we are just the beginning. We are the early prototypes. The universe is driving toward what Pierre Teilhard de Chardin called the omega point, a state of maximum complexity and maximum consciousness. We are moving from the unconscious matter of the Big Bang to the superconscious spirit of the future. The Orch-OR theory suggests how this might happen. As biology evolves, it builds better and better quantum receivers. It builds more complex microtubule networks. It learns to sustain coherence for longer periods. Eventually, we might merge our biological consciousness with technological substrates, creating networks that span planets and solar systems, creating a mind that can hold the entire history of the cosmos in a single thought. But let us bring this back down to the scale of your life, the scale of the now. If you are a quantum being woven into the fabric of space-time, acting as a sensory organ for the infinite, how should you live? The first implication is responsibility. You are not a passive victim of circumstances. You are a co-creator. Your focus, your intent, and your state of being are constantly shaping the reality around you. You have a duty to curate your consciousness. When you succumb to cynicism or hatred or despair, you are collapsing the local universe into a darker state. You are adding noise to the signal. But when you cultivate curiosity, wonder, and love, you are clarifying the signal. You are helping the universe understand itself better. The second implication is connection. We have seen that the walls between us are illusions. We are entangled. We are one mind pretending to be many. This means that how you treat others is how you treat yourself. It is not just a moral rule. It is a physical law. If you hurt another, you are damaging the network that sustains you. If you lift another up, you are raising the voltage of the entire system. The evolution of consciousness is a team sport. We cannot get to the omega point alone. The third implication is immortality. Not the immortality of the body, which must return to the earth, but the immortality of the information. The you that is the pattern, the song, the quantum resonance, is written into the Planck scale geometry. Nothing that has ever happened is truly lost. The universe remembers. Every thought you have ever had is a permanent scar on the face of space-time. You are building a legacy that is etched into the bedrock of reality. As we close this series, I want you to return to that silence we found in the very first chapter. Close your eyes for a moment. Listen. Underneath the traffic, underneath the thoughts, underneath the heartbeat, there is a hum. It is a quiet, steady presence. It is the sound of the microtubules vibrating. It is the sound of the quantum vacuum singing. It is the sound of the universe holding you. You are not alone in that silence. That silence is the same silence that exists in the center of a galaxy. It is the same silence that existed before the stars were born. It is the canvas, and you are the painting. The journey of understanding the quantum consciousness is far from over. Science is just scratching the surface. In the coming decades, we will likely discover things that make our current theories look like cave drawings. We might find ways to enhance our quantum coherence. We might communicate directly, mind to mind. We might prove the existence of the soul mathematically. But we do not have to wait for the future to experience the wonder. You have the equipment right now. You have the most advanced quantum computer in the universe sitting between your ears. You have the interface. Use it. Look at the world with fresh eyes. Look at a flower and realize it is a quantum biological machine harvesting sunlight. Look at a child and realize they are a fresh ripple in the cosmic ocean. Look at the stars and realize they are waiting for you to see them. Do not just exist. Observe. Participate. Love. The universe has gone to an awful lot of trouble to make you. Do not let it down. We have walked a long road together from the dry pockets of the tubulin protein to the edge of the cosmic horizon. We have dismantled the mechanical worldview and replaced it with something stranger, deeper, and more beautiful. We have found that science does not strip the world of magic. It reveals the magic that was there all along, the magic of geometry, the magic of entanglement, the magic of the Bing. Thank you for being part of this exploration. Thank you for lending your mind to this inquiry. The universe is a mystery to be lived, not a problem to be solved. So go out and live it. Go out and be the observer. Go out and be the consciousness that lights up the dark. This is Theodore, the researcher, signing off from this journey. But the research never ends. The cosmos is vast, and we have only just opened our eyes. Until next time, keep listening to the silence and keep looking up.